back to another live session. Hope everyone enjoyed the sponsor sessions. Next up, we have Martin Zugec, who is a senior architect, technical marketing at Citrix. He will be presenting on app protection soon. But while we're waiting for that, we're going to go ask a few trivia questions. While we're just waiting on some folks to head on over here from the sponsor sessions. If you know the answers to the trivia, please drop them in the group chat, right, and not the Q&A. So I want to help you win this. So open up your group chat and prepare to answer some questions. The first person to answer correctly will win a CUGC cup. It's an awesome cup. I've seen a sample. So please open your chat now and get ready for questions. Okay, question one. How old is the Citrix user group community? Okay, we're just waiting for some answers here. Okay, keep going. Oh, okay, I think we have a winner here. I think it's Emery. So Emery, please, so the answer is 5. We've been around for 5 years. It's quite a while. Okay, Emery, just email Katie for your prize and she'll ship that on to you. Okay, next question. How many global sponsors does CG have? Okay, let's see. Okay, keep going. Can you still have a chance? Okay, not quite yet. Oh, I think we have a winner there. Okay, Luke, answer is 12. All right. Okay, next question. Citrix was originally named. What was the original company name of Citrix? Okay, this ought to be interesting. Oh, I think we have Ron. Citrix Systems. Okay, great. So let's move on and hope you enjoyed all those questions. And Carl, thanks for that plug for where it was founded. So I'm going to hand this over to Martin. He's going to give you a great presentation. It's as up to date as yesterday, I've heard. So Martin, I'm going to hand that over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, James. So hi, everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about the app protection policies, which is one of the new security technologies from Citrix that I'm really excited about. I decided that pretty much all of us are probably tired of these online meetings in 2020. And I'm experimenting a little bit with slightly different formats. So I will talk a bit more about myself and my background first, which I usually just kind of skip and focus on the topic. I promise this will be relevant to the topic and discussion. So few things that defines me. I would like to start that I'm very proud father. I have 2 kids. I have 5-year-old Amy and 3-year-old Oliver. If we are all lucky, you will not hear them today and not see them today. I have 2 more kids or children that you hopefully already know. One is Citrix Optimizer, which I developed in 2017, and I still own it, even though now we actually have more people working on it. The second one is from 2018, and that is the Citrix Tech Zone. Again, I really hope that all of you know what the Citrix Tech Zone is, and if not, you should definitely check it out. Aside from being a father, I'm a speaker at conferences and user group meetings. I've done about 30 presentations last year. This year, of course, it's not so busy. I'm a blogger, and I'm a big fan of the scripting and automation. So I actually have 16 years of experience with PowerShell scripting. And if you would like to say that that's actually a couple more years than PowerShell existed, I was involved since the very early prototypes. And if you are asking the question why someone from marketing needs PowerShell, you would actually be surprised that the optimizer is mostly written in PowerShell, and the tech zone is almost completely automated in PowerShell. So hopefully one day, if we can meet in person, I can show you how the tech zone really works under the hood, because that's really exciting. Now, aside from this couple of things, something that also defines who I am is that I'm Eastern European. So I grew up in Czechoslovakia, and this must be shocking that this accent is not a native speaker for sure. And I have to say, 2020 reminds me a lot of growing up in the communism. Empty streets, food lines, everything. That brings a lot of nostalgic memories that are not so good. Now, talking about Eastern Europeans, we are kind of known to be the bad guys in all the good 80s action movies. But aside from that, Eastern Europeans are generally known to be quite famous or infamous in IT security. And my background is mostly automation and Citrix, but I've actually been working a lot with security as well. If you, for example, if you remember the Windows Vista release, the first bypass of UAC was written by me. And for many, many months after I've done that, I actually had to talk to antivirus companies because many of them were detecting the name Zugec on file system and automatically blocking all executables because the bad guys were using my proof of concept code to bypass the UAC. So that was a lot of fun, I would call it that way. Now, but have you ever wondered why the Eastern Europeans are so much actually interested in security? And I have my own theory what is behind it. So growing up in communism, we didn't have money, of course. And even if you had money, there was almost nothing that you could buy. And I'm not talking about essentials like food. We had food, but electronics, especially good one, it was almost impossible to get. So I remember, for example, my father could do almost every repair in the car on his own without going to car service. And the IT was the same. So we couldn't buy computers, and everything that we had to do on our own. So the hacking and do-it-yourself culture is very strong in all of us that grew up in the Eastern Europe under communism. Now, to give you a few examples, what you see here on the picture, it's a computer called Maťo. Maťo is the nickname for Martin. So this is the name that everyone would actually call me when I was a kid. Now, if you imagine that you would just take the money and get a computer, that's not how it works for us. So you would get the money, probably wait 2 or 3 years because it was in a short supply all the time. And then you will just get the box with components, and it would be up to you to build it. And when I say build computer, I don't mean like plug and play. I mean, you will really need the soldering iron, and it would probably take you another 12 months to put everything together. So What you see here on the right side of the screen, this is actually part of the manual for this computer, where you will have to build this on your own. Now, if this is already for you like not very impressive that you had to do it. Another problem that we had is I don't believe there was any box with this computer that was complete ever produced. So you will get the box where most probably you will not have all the parts, or you will have, for example, more parts, but some critical parts were missing or not working at all. So I remember even as a kid, in the newspaper, you will see a lot of advertisements saying, I have 4 buttons A and I'm looking for button W and E, for example. So as you can imagine, you would need to do a tremendous amount of work to actually get the computer, and you never knew if it's going to work. So again, we grew up in the culture of do-it-yourself and hacking. It also didn't help that there was like pretty much intellectual property was non-existing. Now, in my background, what I remember, and unfortunately I don't have pictures for this, and I would love to, I still remember my first computer was in 1985, and if it was really hard to get computer, it was really impossible to get any components or peripherals. So my first mouse, we built it with my father using the ping pong ball, and we used the door rings because they had the switches that you could use for the mouse. My first joystick was actually built from the MiG-21 jet fighter parts because my father used to be a jet pilot back in those days. So this should kind of give you a little bit of idea why Eastern Europeans have always been inclined to work in security, and actually on both sides, the good one and the bad one as well. So today's topic, again, we are staying with IT security. I'm going to talk about app protection policies. It's something that I'm really excited about. App protection policy is designed to improve the endpoint protection. And as you can imagine, especially in bring your own device and working from home and remote work scenarios, this is becoming more and more important. At this moment, it supports Windows and macOS operating systems. I'm saying at this moment because Citrix Workspace app is available on more operating systems, of course. It requires the Citrix Workspace app version 1912 LTSR or new version. I always recommend use the latest one if you can, because the app protection policies is still being improved in every single release. Now, I will mention this a couple of times because it is kind of the common misconception. It is not protecting only published applications and desktops, but it is protecting also other components of the Citrix Workspace. For example, authentication dialogues and any other sensitive components of the Citrix Workspace app that you have. When you've been talking to different people about what the app protection policies do, probably what you heard is that it's add-on feature for the Citrix virtual apps and desktops. And the way how I typically see it presented is that this is something that prevents the end users from taking the screenshots of the sensitive data. So usually the way how it's presented is that this is protection against the screen capture. This is also protection against the keylogging. And sometimes someone mentions that this helps with the accidental screen sharing of sensitive data. Now, what I would like to do is, if you've seen the app protection policies presented this way, I would like to make few minor corrections and kind of change the priorities here. The first important thing is it's an add-on feature for the Citrix Workspace app, not only for the virtual apps and desktops. I will talk about this a little bit later, but this is not limited technology as it's often presented. Secondly, if I should talk about the really important security features and what is really important from app protection policies, I would start by talking about the keylogging. Then a bit later on the list of priorities, I would talk about the screen sharing. And then after some time, I would mention the screen capture. But for me personally, the screen capture is the least interesting protection that app protection policies can provide you. And I would actually, instead of just throwing this to you, I would like to explain why I think and how I came to this. So another segment of the story, which is going to talk a bit about my security background. I'm going to talk about the reality checks in IT security. I promise I will keep this very brief. Now, most of my kind of security credit actually goes back to, I don't know, 15 years ago. And if you try to find out the principle of least privilege document from Microsoft, this was released in about 2002, I would say. This was the first security white paper from Microsoft that started talking about this principle. I'm listed there as one of the independent contributors. So these are security principles that I've been following for decades at this moment. I'm a strong believer that the false sense of security is the only kind there is. And if you are feeling safe, that probably means that, yeah, I would reconsider it. Let me put it that way. For many, many years, I've been a big supporter of the idea of defense in depth. I have a blog post dating almost 20 years ago when I was talking about this concept. And back then, discussion usually was, we have one security tool, antivirus, and that's all that we need. In recent years, I've seen a big improvement, but it's still, you have to always think more and more and more security layers. There is never enough security layers that you can implement. The second big belief that I have for a very long time is know your enemy. So before you can be a good security defender, you actually need to understand what are the tools and techniques that the attackers are using. So I see a lot of people that implement security. They learn it from other administrators, but they never really check what the hackers are using, what kind of tools and approaches. Another part is you should always learn from the past, protect against present, and prepare for the future. Again, I see a lot of companies that are perfectly ready for all the security attacks that were happening in 2015, for example. So you really want to keep up with the latest development. The final note is every single year is different, and every company is different, and it's facing different threats. And this is really, really critical because anytime when I see, for example, someone talking about security and they are presenting data from 2016, 2017, 2018, I'm going to be very cautious because that's usually just looking for very specific data to fill your story. I like to work differently. So the way how I work in security is every single year I like to read data breach investigations report. This is the summary of what is currently happening in IT security. It's about 40 pages that you need to learn. And if you are reading only one document or one article about security, I would strongly suggest to read the data breach investigations report. And this is going to actually help you to understand what the criminals are doing and what is the motivation, what are the tools. Now, when you have a look at the data breach investigations report, the first question that you should ask is what attackers want. And many people will tell you they want money. At the end, that's true, but actually what they are mostly going after and what you can protect, what is the gateway to your money or money from someone else, is security credentials. Now, long time ago, the payment card information was the king. If you have a look at how the price per stolen credit card is developing, you can see that it really goes down, and now it's not really good business. If you have a look at how much you can get money for the stolen credentials, and it doesn't matter what's the target victim size, you can see that this is the #1 target for almost all the cyber criminals. And it doesn't matter if it's huge enterprise or very small company, it is the same. How can the attackers get to these credentials? This is 8 most common attack techniques or tools, kind of approaches, that are being used. Again, this is for 2020. And what we see is that a lot of people are talking about ransomware or the cryptojacking. Cryptojacking is not even going to make it in the top 10. So the phishing is by far the biggest one, growing all the time. But what you will notice is that I highlighted some sections. I could create the story for app protection policies for almost everything on this list. But password dumper, stolen credentials, this is the anti-keylogging technology, and there is direct protection against this kind of attacks that you can provide with this technology. The third on the list that you have, and this is kind of similar to the fourth one, the misconfiguration. Misdelivery typically happens in the healthcare industry. It means that you are on a Zoom meeting and you are accidentally sharing sensitive document. Or you take the picture, screenshot of your screen, and there is some sensitive data. Or you send email to someone else than who it was intended to go first. Now, all of these actually, these 3 items or techniques are directly related to app protection policies. Now, this was, as I said, a bit longer introduction. I hope you found it interesting. And let's go and deep dive into the different components of app protection policies. There are 2 technologies included at this moment. I still hope that they will grow over time. The first one is the anti-keylogger protection. And here pretty much what is happening is the attackers are going to deploy the keylogger on your machines. They are not going to capture all the data. That's not really happening. They are going to focus on the usernames and passwords because that is what they are, again, credentials, understand what they want to get. Now, what we are doing with the anti-keylogger protection in app protection policies is that we are adding new, very low-level keyboard kernel driver. Okay, and we have a memory buffer here that's going to work actually very simple. It's going to do the substitution cipher. So letter H will become letter Z, letter E, letter O, letter L will become A, letter O will become K, for example. And this memory buffer, protected memory buffer, is shared between this kernel driver and shared between the protected application that you have. So now what's really happening is that when you are typing, the first to intercept your typing is going to be this low-level kernel driver. It's going to use this table to change the text to some seemingly random characters, and then it's going to release it to Windows operating system. So the Windows operating, all the keyloggers, everything that you have, it's going to see already scrambled data. And once this data arrives to protected application, the protected application is going to use this shared memory to actually translate it back to what was the original text that you have been typing. Now, this table, it's dynamic and it's constantly changing. So even if you are recording the data, you will not be able to reconstruct it back after a certain amount of time because this is constantly changing. So 1 second later, the H will become B, for example. Now, the way how it works here is that when you type hello, the app protection driver is going to use this table and it's going to change it to Zoac or whatever it is. This is what the keylogger is going to see and potentially send to the hacker. And now when it arrives to protected application, it's going to be translated back to hello. And the hello text is going to be the one that is sent to published application or published desktop or anything else you have. The reason why this is important and exciting, actually, is that this means that you can add anti-keylogger protection to any published application and desktop. The published application and desktop don't need to have anything specific to support this. So the same way as we are using the Citrix virtual apps and desktops to provide the remote access capabilities, even to old legacy applications, the app protection policies are adding this extra security to all these applications that we are using. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the anti-keylogger protection demo. And let's wait for it to start a little bit. Okay, and I have some technical issues. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, because it's not displaying on my side. Okay, so I apologize for technical issues. I'm not sure if you've seen the video. I got disconnected for some reason, so it crashed on me. Unfortunately, I will have to skip the demo. But what I wanted to show you is I'm using the Metasploit, so I'm using one of the tools that the attackers are using. I use it with normal application. You can see the text. Then I'm using it with application protected by app protection, and you can just see a mess. So believe me, that's what you would normally see. I have one more demo to show later, so hope that one will work as expected. Now, I'll just give it a second. Okay, so again, I apologize. The live demo didn't work as expected. Now, I would like to talk a bit about how the anti-keylogger protection works under the hood. Again, it's using the shared translation buffer between the kernel driver and the Citrix Workspace app. What we are also doing is this kernel driver is actually non-stoppable, and it is monitored by Citrix Workspace app. So even if you will find the way how to stop it, disable it, the Workspace app itself will find out that this protection doesn't work, and it's not going to allow you to connect to the protected resource. Now, this shared buffer is constantly changing, so it's constantly randomized. If you keep looking for the patterns, there are a few techniques that you can use to decipher the typical ciphers like this. This is not going to work with the anti-keylogger protection. If you want to see it, there is the kernel driver is called Entry Protect Service, and you can find it, or you can look at the library hooks that we are using for the processes. Now, one interesting bit is the app protection policies for anti-keylogger protection. It's activated only when the protected window is in focus. So if you have a normal application like Notepad, the protection is completely disabled. As soon as you switch to one of the protected applications, let's say Citrix Workspace app, the protection is immediately activated. One thing to mention here is, as I mentioned, the Citrix Workspace app itself is protected, not only published application. So what is going to happen is as soon as you launch the Citrix Workspace app and you are just authenticated, this dialog is already protected against the keylogger. The second technology that we have is called anti-screen sharing protection. This is the identical technology as prevents the end users from taking the screenshots. Again, the misdelivery, which is accidentally sharing the screen, in my opinion, is more interesting use case, especially now. The way how the normal screen grabbing or screen capture works is that you have a lot of different applications. Some people use Snagit. I like to use Screenshot. You have the snipping tool. You have the snip and sketch in Windows 10. But all these applications are actually not really doing the screen capture. What they are doing is that they are going to call the Windows API and ask it, can you send me the content of the whole screen? Or can you send me the content of this specific window that is visible? Or can you send me the content, and then they just send the coordinates saying it starts here, it goes here, just send me whatever you see here. So you can have thousands of different applications. All of them are going to use the same Windows API, and the API itself will generate the image and send it back to the application that you are calling. Now, the anti-screen sharing or capture protection, what we are doing is that we have the list of these Windows APIs, and it's not very long list. You have maybe 10 different APIs in Windows that are being used, and we have DLL hook for these API calls. And what's happening here is that this DLL hook is also linked to this policy driver. So when you try to send to capture the screenshot or get the content of the screen, let me put it that way, what this hook is going to do is that it will quickly check if any of the protected windows is, if any of these protected windows is actually visible on the screen somewhere. It doesn't have to be in focus. It can be hidden somewhere. I mean, in a sense, like hidden behind another window. And if it is somewhere on the screen, instead of sending you the screenshot itself, it is going to send you only the black screen, completely black screen. And as I was saying before, this protection is based on the visibility of Windows. So if you minimize the protected application, the screenshot will work, again, exactly as it was working before, without any issues. Now, and this is really important, because what this means is that the anti-screen sharing protection, it is targeting underlying APIs. It's not looking for specific processes. It's not looking for, it's not blocking like the known applications, nothing like that. It is blocking APIs. And the anti-keylogger protection is pretty much doing the same. It's not looking for known keyloggers. It is working on much lower level. And if you've been wondering, as soon as I got access to the first code of app protection policies, what I did is that I built my own screen capture tool. I built my own keylogger, and I was testing with the code that I developed. And that's how I know that this really works. Even if you write completely custom tool that will be used only for single attack, this technology can actually prevent you from doing it. So again, this is DLL hook on relevant Windows APIs. You have some GDI APIs, DirectX, for example, Magnify, the accessibility assistant. It has its own APIs, and we are targeting all of them. Now, I have second demo, and I'm just thinking if I'm brave enough to try it, or I will skip it, and I guess I am going to try it. So wish me luck, and let's see if this one is going to work better than the previous one. And I'm not sure if you can still hear me, but for me, this stopped working again. Okay, and I'm back. So this is the second demo that you haven't been able to see. Pretty much what I wanted to show you here is simple scenario, one presenter, one attendee, both of them using Zoom. That was a sensitive document displayed on the screen. I was trying to share the screen, and all the attendee can see is just the black rectangle instead of the document itself. Now, when I was doing this demo, I actually tried this with not only Zoom, but also Microsoft Teams, GoToMeeting, TeamViewer, and like 7 or 8 different most popular tools just to make sure that all of them are working as expected. Now, the next thing that I'm going to show you after this demo, that if you close your eyes, you can imagine how it looked like, is everything that I was talking about. This is technology that is actually, technically, it's implemented on the endpoint itself. Okay, so it's between operating system and the driver and the Citrix Workspace app itself. Now, there is integration with the Citrix virtual apps and desktops. And I would like to talk a little bit about the flow, how this works, and to explain the behavior that you are seeing with app protection policies. So when you are connecting to the storefront, to the gateway and to the storefront, what the Citrix Workspace app is going to do is that in the header that is initially sent, it's going to include information whether or not app protection policies are installed and available and working as expected. This information is taken by storefront, and this is being forwarded to the DDC. So pretty much storefront is telling DDC, I have this client, and he has app protection policies enabled. Can you please return to me all the sources that you have, including or excluding the protected applications? Now, these applications are pretty much being displayed in the storefront to the user. The user clicks on the icon. At this moment, all the part, the endpoint, the storefront, the DDC know this is protected resource. So what it's going to do is going to ensure that the protection is enabled and it's being activated. The way how this behavior kind of flows means that if you have, and I will mention it a little bit later, this means that if you have old client, you are not even going to see these protected applications. To see the protected desktops and applications where this protection is required, first you must have the app protection policies installed and configured. Otherwise, these icons are completely missing. Now, talking about the implementation, how you can implement, and this is probably not going to be very surprising for you, I hope. We do have the POC guide, including step-by-step instructions and screenshots and some tips and tricks available on the tech zone. if you just want to see, if you actually want to see the quick demo that I was talking about, we do have a tech brief on Tech Zone available. That demo is not there yet, but I'm probably going to actually include it. So you can watch it yourself. The way how you are implementing the app protection policies, first you need to enable the feature on DDC. You do this only on one of the DDCs, and it's one PowerShell command where you are importing XML file. This XML file is telling your Citrix virtual apps and desktops environment that there is this feature that you would actually like to implement. The reason why this is required is that this feature is the app protection policies are included in LTSR. It was not available in the previous CR release. So to make sure that we don't make too many code changes, that's why you need to explicitly enable this feature, and it's not enabled by default. The next step for you is that you need to import the add-on license file. You need to do this on the license server. We don't check out the licenses, but we are on the connection to the resources. We check if the license is available, if it's valid, if it's not expired, and if you can use this feature. Next, you need to install required version of Citrix Workspace app on all clients. If you have the new version of the client and the app protection policies, the engine is not installed, there is actually an option for the on-demand install. So what's going to happen is that you will see the protected application. When you click on it, you will see the pop-up saying, this application requires app protection engine. You don't have it. Do you want to install it now? And when you click on yes, it's going to be on-demand installation of that protection. Finally, what you need to do is that you need to enable or disable the protection policies on the delivery group level. And there are two settings that you can use. One is used for the keylogging, and one is used for the screen capture. So you can enable only the keylogging, or you can enable only the screen capture, or you can do both. It's not in UI, so at this moment, you have to use PowerShell to configure this. Now, pretty much the last slide that I have, or almost the last one, I would like to talk about the current, let's call it limitations, or something to be aware of. This is as of 2 days ago, because this keeps changing. And don't forget, app protection policy is pretty much new technology that we constantly keep improving and working on. The first one I would like to mention is you configure this on the delivery group level. So if you would like to enable it only for some users, but not for the others, again, this is done on delivery group level. So you have to either disable it or enable for everything that is published for that delivery group level. Important here as well is to mention that you can make this either mandatory or you can disable it. You cannot use the best effort scenario where you say use app protection if you can. If not, it's fine. This is a security feature. So this is strict requirement saying to access resources in this delivery group level, you must have this functionality available. At this moment, the native store is required, so there is no support for the storefront web stores. Again, keep a look at the development and the changelog, because we keep working on this one. Only the on-premises version of CVAD is supported. So at this moment, there is no support for the Citrix virtual apps and desktop service. As you can imagine, this is quite important, so we are working on this. The next one is there is limited support for double hop scenario, and there is quite a lot of confusion about this one. There was quite a lot of confusion about some limitations and requirements in the past. For example, you don't need to disable the clipboard redirection. That was commonly known limitation, but it's not really required. The limited support for double hop, and this applies to RDP and HDX, means you connect from your endpoint to published desktop, from published desktop to published applications. Now, the way how this works is on your endpoint, which is the most important one, the app protection policies works perfectly without any issues. On the middle hop, the published desktop that you have, the screen sharing protection is enabled, but the anti-keylogger protection does not work because you are inside RDP or inside HDX session. So that's why I say limited support. Again, the endpoint is what is most critical for you, and on endpoint, it is fully functional. Now, two more things I would like to mention is you need to educate your users for app protection. There are two reasons why. First one is the behavior when, if you don't have a required client, the resources that are protected are not even going to be displayed. So if you just enable these policies and the end user start calling you saying my application or my desktop disappeared, this is what is probably causing it. The second problem that you might encounter if you don't explain to your end users how this works is that the Citrix Workspace app itself is protected. So as I mentioned, when you run it for the first time and you have the authentication dialog where you enter the username and the password, the keylogger is not going to see this information, but this applies to the screen capture as well. So what can happen if your end users don't understand this is if they have the Citrix Workspace app open somewhere on the screen and they are joining the meeting, for example, the GoToMeeting or Zoom, and they would like to start the screen sharing, all the attendees are going to see just the black screen because they cannot use the screen sharing when one of these protected windows is actually displayed. Now, this is a little bit about the current situation. Again, this keeps improving. And what I have to say is the core technology is actually very solid. I'm really happy with it. I'm a big fan of the anti-keylogger protection because that works exactly as designed. So it's only we are slowly improving the capabilities and the implementation on our side, but the core technology that is deployed on the endpoint, that's actually a really, really solid piece of work. Now, as I said, the future is bright. We keep working on this. We keep improving it. And as I mentioned before, the Citrix Workspace dialogues are protected as well. And because the Citrix Workspace app is the endpoint component of different Citrix services, this is not going to be limited only to Citrix virtual apps and desktops. So we are already adding support for the Citrix access control, for the SaaS and web apps protection. But of course, we will keep improving this and integrating it with Citrix more and more than before. Now, this is the last slide that I have, and I apologize due to the technical challenges. I didn't have time to take any questions, but we are going to have the roundtable discussion about the app protection. So I hope to see all of you there, and I will try to answer all the questions that you can have about this technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin, for a wonderful presentation. So moving forward, please join the sponsor sessions. Sponsors will be presenting and sharing demos during this time. Make sure to make your way to all of the sponsor booths to collect the secret passport word and complete your passport by 3:30 p.m. Return to the main stage at 2:45 to join DJ Ezelman on how's mentoring advance my career, or you can join the Carl Webster's scripting session. Very hard to choose between the two, but I leave that to you. Please, we'll see you in the sponsor sessions.